let's switch our time here to Ryan Collier, our guest today. By way of short introduction, Ryan, as I said, is a great friend of the program. He is the founder of an organization called Applicant Pro. He has designed a great system that he is available to us and you as members of AIM. And Ryan, you're joining somewhere with palm trees in the background. You're looking pretty good there, my friend. Tell us where you're at and what you got going on today, and we'll get in some Q&A for you here.
I am in how do you say it? Curacao,
Curacao,
Venezuela. Yep,
Yeah.
on my honeymoon. But I'm coming to speak, and so I was like, oh man, I gotta jump on this program. My wife is waiting for the scuba boat.
Wait a minute. Ryan, did you just say you're on your honeymoon down there and you're joining us on the program? Oh my God.
But both of us are on our second marriages, so that means we've had practice at this.
Congratulations.
Last time
today's topics are cool. Yeah.
Say that again, Ryan.
I said I think today's topics are cool and super interesting. Just the kind of the feedback from the organizations and where we're at. I think chaos. I was doing really good until they fired up the weed eaters.
Yeah. Well, I can't background noise, but yeah, I know this topic of AI is right up your alley. Maybe before we do that, Ryan, what is it you got going on today that you would want our listeners to know about? And then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming program and maybe what you will be promoting while we're down in Orlando.
Yeah, I think it's just a super interesting time. If you go back, I've spent a bunch of time thinking back on kind of major technological shifts. So think back to the email time and to the internet first invention and coming along and actually being adopted in business. If you go back to those times, we didn't know how email was going to impact either. Yeah. Right? Like mail carriers were thinking they were going to be out of work forever, that people would quit sending mail. Like if you think it's called the hype cycle. And we'll talk about this when I'm down, but if you learn, I think I've got a video on it we'll send out. But the one thing to kind of understand and frame in what's going on is the hype cycle. Anytime there is a new major technology that's that has massive disruptive ability, you're going to end up in a hype cycle. It's just fact of life. As something new is invented by, a geeky nerd, then at some point those geeky nerds need two things. They need help and they need money. And in order to get other geeky nerds on their team and in order to raise venture capital, they have to overhype the potential of what could be. It's just built into the system of venture capital. It's never going away. And so you get this massive amount of hype, and then everybody tries to use it, and you see it crash back down of like, oh, it didn't do what was promised. It's kind of like thinking about, I have an order for a Cybertruck. Elon has promised when that's coming out. I don't take that as a hard promise because I understand what it's like to invent something new. I'm not going, Tesla, the stock is going to tank because the Cybertruck's not out yet. Those were much more projections of what could happen, and leading adopters understand that stuff changes. Right. And that's where you're at with AI. And so every single time that you hear anything, this idea of like, where is the hyper hate coming from? Is this coming from somebody who has something to gain from promising the world? Or is this coming from somebody who's the status quo is being attacked potentially by AI and they're trying to pull the reins and slow it down? And that gives us a way to see through. It's kind of like even on the same subject of getting back to work. Everybody's got an agenda when they're talking about that concept or that point. And you have to be able to figure out the agenda to figure out how meaningful their conversation is.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of looking at it. And I'm looking forward. I have not seen that hype.
Like, I think the skills gap is a super interesting one. For the last 3 weeks, I've probably built 20 different coaches out of ChatGPT that, like, we send them out to job seekers. So we're like, hey, if you want to get a job as a marketer, but you have no marketing experience, load this thread into ChatGPT and it will turn into your personal marketing coach. Just like in 5 minutes, they can load that thread, log in there and say #help. And it will say, what are you doing in marketing today? Tell me what you're doing and let me help you. So
Yeah.
collaborative, kind of like a coach or a mentor being there, cuts out some of that skills gap, because you're giving every employee technically like a mentor that's available all the time to them and can be trained in like 5 minutes per topic. So the
Yeah.
ways to use
I
AI, I
know.
think, are just, if you go back to your poll question, my answer is I'm not thinking I'm using any of those.
Let's take a look at our poll results this far, Ryan, and get some opinion on that. It's a favorite thing we like to do with our guests. I don't know if you all are able to see that here. I'm
Want me to read it out? Is it kind of small for you?
Yeah, please do, Nick.
Okay, so in what ways has your organization already utilized AI integration strategies in the hiring process? We have 83.4% say none. We have, and then matching in second place, but barely in second, not in last, is resume screening and job matching and assessment and skills testing. So,
and I think we get on a lot of time on the show, Ryan, we've chatted about, the screening and job matching part of AI, and to be careful that, it's not set up to give us, predetermined results. But I know as far as job posting and attraction, you've done some very clever things and have taught us some very clever ways of going forward. What's your thoughts on any of those results?
Yeah, and I think, again, that goes right to it. The AI companies want to use it, or want to talk about the future of how powerful it could be, but we miss the point. Like, the number one thing that a company could do right now in recruiting is rewrite their job ad. Sorry, I'm going to find this bar a bit quieter. Is rewrite their job ad. And the reason they don't rewrite their job ads is because they're too busy, or they're not that creative, or, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And so the AI companies want to push, hey, it's kind of like, why does a Lamborghini go 200 miles an hour when the speed limit never is over 70? Because Lamborghini wants to show how fast a car can go. But so if you take all these things, most of these portions either need to be built into a platform to be used, which means that's out of the business owner or HR person's hands, or weed you into legal areas of either we're uploading people's proprietary information, or whatever the case may be.
Bert, let's look at this next poll result and get some opinions from you, our listeners. It looks like, does your organization have HR policies for AI? According to this, we have no one that's saying yes, we have specific policies. Welcome back, Ryan.
Maybe.
Bert,
So,
I know your firm works in this space to help develop policies for us. It's kind of a new space on AI policies specific to AI. Is this something that you're starting to see more requests from in the firm?
yeah, definitely. Now I think it's interesting on both the polls, looking at them together, Phil. And if you could go back to the first one real briefly, Nick. The number there at the bottom of the first poll that shows that 83.4% are not using AI integration strategies in the hiring process. That means, again, most employers really are not using AI for anything of significance. They're experimenting with it. Now, if you could flip forward to the next poll, Nick, so you take that 84% roughly are not using AI, and then you look at this, does your organization have HR policies for AI? And only 20% say yes. Those are probably roughly the 20% that are using the AI. Now, I think it's really significant here is the federal government, and in particular the EEOC. Ryan talked about the hype cycle. I love that. I've never heard that term before, but I will be using
need
it.
to get you
The
to come
hype
down
cycle.
to Orlando, Bert, and come visit us
Yep.
during the summit at the end of the month in Orlando and hear more about that hype cycle.
I love it. It's the hype cycle. Part of it is being fed by the government itself, and the government, the EEOC in particular. One of the areas that the EEOC has as part of its strategic enforcement plan that we covered last week on the program is AI. And so the EEOC has gotten very, very aggressive on its agenda as it relates to AI. And so you've got legal requirements now. If you are an organization and you're going to be using AI, you definitely need to do it carefully and in compliance with the law. And the big thing that the EEOC is looking for with respect to the use of AI, and eventually the courts will be looking at this as well, is the AI, the artificial intelligence, learning bias, particularly in the applicant realm. It's probably not as relevant in the decision-making realm with respect to people's actual employment once they've started. That's more performance-based. But during the hiring process, is AI filtering out applicants? Is it learning to discriminate against certain age groups, certain sexes, certain racial backgrounds?
And I think if it's really good AI, it would do just the opposite of that.
Yeah, well,
If the AI is done right in that process, it should do just the opposite, because it shouldn't matter in that case. You wouldn't have the human bias built into it if it's done right.
Their challenge is that it's all based off what it was trained on. And
exactly.
if you think about that, that's why like deciding where to wade is probably the 2023 for the rest of this year goal of a business. Where am I safe to wade into AI? So if we take recruiting as a good example, writing job ads perfectly safe, creating screening questions, coming up with interview questions, creating an entire new hire training series of emails to introduce them to your culture and all that kind of stuff. That's all wildly safe area. Or at least you're equally safe there as you were yesterday having a job description that doesn't get any results. But when you step into say, like, can it predict who we should hire? You have to, one of two things is going to have to happen. A, we train it on past data, which would be, here's the resumes of people who were hired. Therefore, if that data was based off of bias of, for instance, if you went through all the data of salespeople, you would be teaching AI that sports players make great salespeople. If you're a collegiate athlete, you make a good salesperson. Yeah, Phil's laughing because he knows where this comes from. Those are the people that sales managers have liked to hire for decades. Therefore, when you train AI saying who is most likely to be in this job, that bias is built into it.
Yeah.
So it's continuing a bias. Now, option number two is somebody comes along and tweaks the algorithm, which freaks everybody out just as well, of saying, no, I want to push my finger down on not that. I want to adjust the algorithm for it. And so you're kind of back to that same problem. There's hacks around it, though. To take the great thing about AI isn't we think it's going to make us more efficient, so we're going to be able to lay people off. But instead, if we think about it and say it will make us more effective and more personalized, that's where we start to see that, hey, I don't want to actually do only 10 hours a week worth of marketing instead of 40. I just want to get great results out of the 40 hours a week. I want to be able to change the voice of every email based off of the person reading it. I want 10 variations of my job ads, not one variation. I want those types of things get you around the bias. But if you want, so for instance, to localize that for, say, who to pick, I upload a resume into ChatGPT and I say, tell me what screening questions to ask. That would be still safe because the human is still there. And that's, if you want to know where we're at today, collaboration between AI and a human solves most of these problems. Where the fear and the problems come in is AI instead of a human. When a human is asking AI to do something that they couldn't do themselves, therefore they couldn't check the work. That's where most of the gray area or the red area sits, is asking. But as soon as you get back to collaborative, hey, throw these 3 resumes in there, come back with a job ad that they would like to read based off their vocabulary. Tell me how this one resume is different than the other 3 so I can go and use that knowledge in an interview. That's all safe area because you're collaborating with a tool. You're just Googling much faster with somebody to read it and disseminate it for you.
And that's what I love about this topic. It's why I'm really excited. Ryan is going to be joining us on October 27th at the third HR Summit down in Orlando. It's going to be a great topic to hear about, to ask questions on. What I can tell you is, I guess it was about 6 months ago we were together, Ryan, and almost since that time and since our conversation and with the few tips that you had shown me at the time, I use AI almost every single day today. When I say AI, I'm using Chat GPT almost every single day for, if not one thing, multiple things throughout the day. It really has become a way that I work, and it saves significant time. And I encourage all of our employees to use it. But I'm glad to hear you say that. We are using it in conjunction with our human oversight. It's not left to its own accord. And at this point, I don't even think it's good enough for that. But as we put our minds with it, and then we even get a better product. And when I do show it to other professionals, they're excited about that. So I invite you to join. You'll be able to join by simulcast or in person if you're in Orlando. Get to meet Ryan himself and hear more about what he has to say. Ryan, I just want to say we're up against the clock here, but thank you so much for joining on your honeymoon. Tell your lovely bride we got a chance to meet her last time. Congratulations. I hope you bring her with you to Orlando. Bert, good job. Yep. And Bert, we will be announcing a program next week that you and I are going to be kicking off for our Illinois paid time off compliance program that you and I are going to be hosting for our members that are struggling to find their way through that new law, which comes into effect January 1, 2024. With that,
you and I will be together on November 2nd for that.
Yep. Thank you, Bert. And with that, we will be back here next week at the same time, 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern Time. We'll see you then. Until then, go be good to somebody.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments